showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
Welcome to episode 191 of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. My name is Chris Hollifield. I am your host. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for listening. However you got here, however you're consuming, however you're tuning in, thank you so much for checking the podcast out. If you're a first-time listener, might I suggest you go to the website, iamsaltlake.com. Dig through the entire back catalog as I've been chatting with some great people here in Salt Lake, finding out their story, finding out how they got to where they're at today. You can also find the podcast on iTunes, Stitcher Radio. Subscribe. It's absolutely free. This episode, Jonathan Ribera, one of the owners of 50 West Club and Cafe, we sit down, we chat. We actually chatted at 50 West, right on location there. Had a great time chatting with him. You know, this episode's going to be all about 50 West because not only is 50 West a sponsor of the podcast, they're a sponsor of I Am Salt Lake, but also this upcoming Friday, October 16th, I'm going to be doing the first I Am Salt Lake Live at Club 50 West. The doors are going to open at 8 p.m. Show's going to start at 8:30. Tickets are available at the door, so don't worry. They're only $5. They'll get you in for a fun evening. We're going to be recording a podcast. We're going to be recording a live podcast. So it'd be great if you could be there. 50 West has a full bar where you can grab a drink and grab some food, bring a date, bring your husband, your wife, your friends. It's going to be a really good evening. My guests for the evening are going to be Carrie Jackson, Paul Duane, and Levi Rounds. Come on out October 16th, doors at 8 p.m. Like I said, Jonathan Ribera is on this episode. We're going to sit, we're going to chat. We're going to find out his story, find out how Club 50 West opened up, some of the challenges, some of the obstacles. We're going to find out how he got to where he's at with all of his endeavors. So without any more chatting on my end, why don't you guys join me as I chat with Jonathan at Club 50 West Club and Cafe right in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. So we're recording at 50 West, Club 50 West Cafe. It's a cafe.
Club.
I'm stumbling all over
really,
what is the name?
Yeah,
what is the exact name of it?
50 West Club and Cafe.
Okay.
And that was because it is two separate entities that are all
It's just all about getting to know the name.
Yeah, yeah. It takes forever because people ask me all the time, like, is it Club 50 West? Is it 50 West Club? Is it Cafe 50 West? You know, so we use multiple terms, so.
I'm going to let Jonathan actually tell the listeners where we're recording this at.
We are at Club 50 West or 50 West Club and Cafe because they are two separate entities that are under the same umbrella.
At 50 West Broadway.
50 West Broadway. I mean, it was genius to come up with that name.
Pretty original.
Where are we? Oh, we're at 50 West. What's this name? 50 West. And where is it? The Broadway Media Building. Where's that? Oh, on Broadway. You know, we were huge. We broke boundaries. We were pioneers in naming.
Right in the heart of downtown Salt Lake City. Beautiful spot, beautiful location. I've been to a handful of stand-up comedy shows here that you've done, and I actually have an upcoming live show here on October 16th, Friday, October 16th. I'm here to find out about Jonathan. I'm here to talk about the club, the cafe. Get to know it because a lot of people here in Salt Lake still are not familiar. That's right. It's a hidden gem, and we've only been open since officially we opened January 1st, but we did open prior to that in December. Okay. So December 4th was our first event. It was a comedian, Joe Mackey. Great, he was on Last Comic Standing. The funny thing is that afternoon we were still hanging the front doors. So it was So were you sweating bullets, being like, "Are we going to be ready to open?" Yeah, and that afternoon prior to that, at 5, it was 4:58. I was at the business office trying to get our license from the business office to make sure we could even open and operate. So I had a couple of gray hairs that day. So what is your title? I mean, you're one of the co-owners of this place, right? Yes. So I'm kind of the functioning operations owner. And then my partner's, a lot of people know the name Deloy Hansen. Of course. So he's more of the financial. He doesn't really want to be on site. Does he ever come around? He does. He'll have lunch here every once in a while and give me some feedback, and come and done some events, whether it was Real or other political stuff that he's involved in. He'll do here.
but he always has feedback, but he really doesn't want to. He has his hands full.
Of course. But he owns,
other.
Broadway Media.
So
the whole.
Owns,
what are the radio stations upstairs? Do you know them by heart?
So upstairs, I do. So upstairs on the second floor right above us is Broadway Media. So that's Broadway Media Group, formerly known as the Simmons Media, which has the following radio stations: Mix 107.9, Rewind 100.7, X96 that most people know, ESPN 700. The country station is Eagle 101.5, and the U92 is the hip hop. So we kind of cover all the brands and all the bases.
So do you know pretty much everybody at the radio stations then?
A lot of because the cool thing about this the concept was this venue and cafe feed each other, and they also feed the Broadway Media. So Broadway Media will have somebody come in. For example, this Thursday they have the ex-ambassadors coming to do their half-ass show, and they're going to do a meet and greet and a private event down here on our stage. So they just bring them downstairs. We get the opportunity to do contests and meet these people and have them play here. And then correspondently, they help us with advertising, and we put our comedians and musicians that come through up on their radio station. So it's a symbiotic relationship. As well as all of our in-house catering and the digitals here too. So I really don't have to go outside anywhere to connect with advertising or people. There's a lot of cool things just right here in the building.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, before we get too much into 50 West, I want to pick your brain, Jonathan. Okay. I want to get to know you. I want the listeners to get to know you and find out your story, kind of find out how because I know we chatted a little bit.
Yeah.
Where were you born?
Japan.
I was expecting you to say a different place. Japan.
Japan, yeah.
Why, Japan? How Japan?
That's where my parents were when I came out. But my dad was military.
Okay.
So he was he wanted to do music, and then he realized that wasn't a good idea, and he went back to school and realized that a good way to facilitate his education was through the military. So he joined up with the officers. He actually wanted to do espionage and realized that wasn't good for family. But he was in the military police, and they stationed him in Tokyo, Japan.
And how long were you in Japan then?
I think it was about 2 years.
Okay, so you were a little baby still.
I was still,
no memories of a childhood.
No. But my mom always says that I was drawn to Asian women, like older ladies, because I guess I had a nanny, and so I somehow. So that was a weird, Freudian kind of issue. I guess I had to get over.
Do you still like Asian women?
No. I mean, let me rephrase that. I like Asian women. They're beautiful people, but I don't like. I feel like we're back in grade school. Do you like her?
I got you.
I like
Circle
like
yes
her.
or no.
Yeah, it really was. I did date a lot of Asian women in high school, though. But my wife is not Asian. She's very white.
So from Japan, where did you come from? Where did you go?
Isn't that crazy? So being a military brat, my dad went back to BYU to get his master's in audiology. After that happened, then the military came back and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you back," which is to me it's weird. We need you. We need hearing people. So he signed back up again, and bless my mother's heart, she actually let my dad go, and we went to Germany. And then after he was there for a couple months, my mom with 5 kids followed him over there. So she was a single mom for several months, and then dragged us all the way to Nuremberg, Germany.
So you lived in Germany?
We lived in Germany for about 3 years, and I was about 8 to 11.
Any memories?
Yes. I have wonderful memories of it. I think at the time, as a kid, you go, I just want to watch TV and play toys and ride bikes. And but my dad was adamant that every weekend we would travel somewhere. So he was, I don't want to say dragging us, but we had a Volkswagen Westfalia Vanagon with a pop-up top, and we drove all over Europe and saw everything from cathedrals. We were, I was a 10-year-old in Paris. I was in Amsterdam seeing, Van Gogh and Rembrandt paintings and statues that no one else. And I come back after that 3-year period, and I go to Texas, and I don't think you realize what you have until you see everybody else who's like, well, I was born and raised in San Antonio, and I don't know anything different. And I was like, well, I was just in, Rottenburg, or I did my Cub Scout Olympics in the Munich Olympic Stadium, or I played soccer in the Soldier Field where Hitler was talking to you don't realize that was unique because that was what your life was.
Absolutely.
So moving around wasn't an absurd concept. I just said, hey, you're my friend for 2 years maybe, and then I'm going to move again and we'll be cool. And that's that.
So you made friends fast pretty quickly.
But I also didn't I don't think you made the deep connections because you said to yourself, well, either he's going to get transferred or I'm going to get moved or, so it was great because I had a chameleon personality and you're able to adapt to not only different people, but cultures as well, languages. You had to kind of start picking up a little bit. So I don't speak anything fluently, but I understand German and Spanish and, those kind of things where you go, I just have to adapt because I'm an American in a strange world.
So did you go to school in Germany then? Did you learn the language?
No. I mean, like I said, we had some teachers there, but we were all military based. So I learned languages, but it was more of the cursing kind.
Can you still curse in German?
I can curse. Yeah, because you have all the other military. So you have an army base, and I think that's where the concept of race didn't make any sense to me because I was like on a school with every other possible person from culture and races, because military is really made up of the minorities. So we're all together going, well, if I didn't like you, it's just because you're a jerk, not because you had a different color or religion. No one hated me because I was raised LDS, and I didn't hate anybody because they happened to be Jewish or black, because we're all together as kids saying, hey, I just need a friend.
Sure.
Because my dad's shooting someone over there or something. It was just a weird concept.
What about siblings, brothers and sisters?
So I have 2 older sisters and 2 younger brothers. Middle kid.
Were you pretty close?
Yes. That's the one thing about moving I think that is amazing for families. If you're born and raised in the same place, you kind of spread out and find your family some other places with friends. When you're moving around all the time, that's the only consistent thing you have. So whether you love and hate them, you realize your best friends happen to be those people that are traveling with you.
They're your family.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us forget that. I know I forgot that many times in my life when I moved out east and kind of, I don't want to, go home.
And that's natural. I mean, that's the way that we're built scientifically, is we have to kind of move away from family. But growing up, it really was, I never looked at my parents as the empire or the big brother trying to stop me from becoming who I was. I said, hey, they're kind of a lifeline, and they were best friends. They were engaged in everything I did. And they knew that it was hard for kids to say, hey, don't even unpack that box because we don't know if we're staying. But in the meantime, let's go and, make your own sled or something. So they were very engaged.
Were you good kid? I mean, did you get into trouble?
Yes.
You got into trouble?
I thought I was good, and I think I had moments of good, but I think, again, it goes along with that moving all the time. You don't know how to express yourself. So whether it's, the pre-pubescent or just childhood, I'm trying to, exert myself and find the envelope of whatever that Jonathan is. I had good day. I was a really good kid, 1st grade, 2nd grade. 3rd grade was in Germany, and I was that one kid who pulled the chair out from under the teacher, who would just throw things at kids, I was a smartass. I was the guy who's always making fun of stuff. And in 4th grade, I was criticizing the teacher's artwork and eating kids' desserts out of their lunch boxes. It just continued to go until we moved to Texas after Germany. In about 5th and 6th grade, I had, you have a little bit stricter teachers.
Yeah.
They have a little more of the old school Texas. If they could, they would hit you, kind of, which we did have corporal punishment in middle school. Which I'm split on if I still agree with it or not, because it worked for me. It only took once, and I was the best kid after that. So it still hurt like a son of a gun.
What about music? Did you ever learn any instruments as a kid?
Again, music was huge in our family. My dad was a violinist. Mother was a singer. In fact, my dad continues to this day conducting orchestras wherever he lives.
Sure.
And we all had to do instruments. I never did the piano. I didn't get into music until middle school, and then they kind of forced you to choose one. And the most important thing was how fat your lips were, and that determined what instrument you'd play. And
my lips
are trombone-sized lips. They're not tuba lips, but they weren't trumpet. I always wanted to play the trumpet because of Miles Davis, huge jazz fan. So I got the trombone, did that, and then I started singing along that line as well, loving jazz. Fell in love with jazz, but then also at the same time, all of a sudden, this thing, after Texas, we moved to Seattle. Right about 89, 90, which a certain genre came up, and that just, one of those moments where the Beatles changed things, Elvis changed things, and then Nirvana, Pearl Jam came out, and the grunge concept.
Did you eat all that up when you were
Boy,
up there?
did I. Come
Really?
on. Most,
Flannel shirts
influential
and-
kid who's, artistic and alone and a rebel. Are you kidding? I had flannel shirts and rain boots and long hair. It was.
Have you seen like Nirvana? Did you go see
Yes,
Nirvana?
we did.
I mean, what?
I did.
You saw all in Soundgarden,
Yeah,
Pearl
I didn't
Jam?
see. I to this day I've never seen Pearl Jam, and that's that bucket list.
Oh my gosh!
And every once in a while you'll hear of Eddie Vedder doing small venues.
Sure.
So I still could put feelers out all the time, like
Maybe
Eddie,
get him here at 50.
Eddie, just come here to 50 West. Look, I know it's going to cost $100,000. I don't have any. If you come, I probably don't have anything else to live for. No, so yeah, that was that one. But I did. I drank the Kool-Aid and never regretted it.
See, I did too, man. I love that whole era.
I mean, you still got it. You can't get rid of it because it feeds into. It's one of those things, it's a huge effect on society and history because it never leaves. So I think grunge changed rock and roll. I think it changed music. I think it changed fashion forever. It changed the Northwest. Holy crap. I mean, because no one would ever go up there before. And we were up there saying, hey, this is a cool place. We don't really want anybody here. And then the mass media got a hold. And
well, it's like Salt Lake, I hear that all the
Yeah.
time. Like with this podcast, they're like, "Oh, don't make Salt Lake look too cool. Everybody will want to move here." You know what I mean?
and growing up, I remember, being raised at LDS. That was my one thing. I was like, I'm never going to go to Salt Lake. Well, it's pretty cool here, but we don't want to tell anybody but actually I do. And
See, I want people to move.
I think
here.
you're the
Yeah.
same way too,
Yeah.
because you and I we're downtown and we want that vibrancy that we see in other cities. And I think it's a good thing. I think the people who live on a farm and don't want to really interact with people anyway are the ones saying, don't tell anyone. That's too late. Salt Lake's kind of cool.
Oh my gosh,
We have everything. I mean, I lived in LA, Seattle, San Antonio. I've lived all these amazing places. In Europe, I stayed there for multiple years. And we're just as cool. I just don't think that we know it. Maybe a lot of people in Salt Lake maybe we're shy or afraid to say that we're cool because of the stereotypes that are put here. I don't know.
Well, for so long, it's almost that thing where if you're not mocking Salt Lake, if you're not making fun of something about it, there's something wrong with you.
Right. Like all of a sudden you're like, hey, you think Salt Lake's okay?
Yeah.
I see a lot of comedians, local especially, where they want to be cool, but that's how they go about it, is either mocking the religion or mocking the conservative ideals of Salt Lake. But as you and I know, it's not even a conservative view anymore. It's changing rapidly. I think it's exponentially growing in diversity, which I've learned is probably the most important thing for a society to get any better and progress is diversity.
Yeah.
Is to say, hey, you don't think like I do, but that's okay. But we have to figure out this problem.
Absolutely.
That's where the only way it works. But I see comedians say, well, those Mormons, or hey, Salt Lake is so this, and I think it's silly.
So backing up a little bit,
Yeah.
I remember chatting with you, and I swear you said you lived in Logan, right?
Yeah, I did.
So before you came to Salt Lake,
Out of everything else I've said, Japan, Germany, I've done this, and you go,
Well,
wait, Logan?
no, and that's where I was expecting for you to say somewhere up in that
gotcha.
area that you were born, and then when you said Japan, it threw me off. So just to kind of speed up the timeline a little bit,
You bet.
What took you to Logan?
I was in California, moved up to St. George for a little bit, and then my dad retired military and got a professorship. He was the department head of speech and audiology at Utah State for their doctorate program. I went and visited, I think it was 2003. And I don't know if you've been in Logan, either springtime or fall are the times that everybody dies for. And it's the most beautiful place, especially coming from somewhere as desolate as St. George and as crazy as LA. You go, this is God's country. And then summer happens. You go, all right, it was kind of warm. And then winter happens, and then you hate your life. And then perpetually, I think it was almost 7 years later that I was able to get out of there. So,
And what were you doing in Logan?
just recovering. I had been married previously, so you're kind of coming out of that, finding yourself again, and it goes back to being gravitated back to that support group where you feel like garbage, but your family still loves you. So I went there, got some jobs, finished school. I went to college out in California to become an animator and work for Disney, and then they invented this thing called Pixar, and I wasn't talented enough on the computer, so I went back to school and got my fine art degree. in painting, drawing, and illustration up at Utah State.
And weren't you working at a comic book store? Didn't you say you worked at a comic book store?
Yeah, eventually a friend and I,
Logan? Okay.
named Trent Hunsaker, he's up there. He actually does a podcast with Kevin Smith's Smodco called Netheads. And he and I talked one day. We realized, hey, we're both comic book fans. And once you find a comic book person that's really a comic book person, not like I saw the movies, but hey, let me tell you about the first issue of Spider-Man. We hit it off, and I said, hey, this is a really stupid idea, but you should open a comic book shop. So we did, but it was involved as well with an improv troupe that was put together. And
why was that a stupid idea, though?
Well, first of all, comic books by themselves aren't as marketable. If you look at any comic book now, it's a fading concept. They're all moving to digital, but you have to blend in the gaming, which is growing. So like the Dungeons and Dragons and Warcrafts and those things where you have sellable pieces. Comic books is a one and out. Like you buy an issue and you might come back if you're a subscriber, but you're not really going to hit the mass market of fans going, hey, I need to have Catwoman 1 through 300. No one's really going to do that. They digest them in graphic novels. So I think it was another kid's dream, because I did grow up during that time period where like it's the same thing with LPs. You'd walk into Virgin Records, or you'd go into that old shop and you're just flipping through record after record or book after book. It's a dying art.
Yeah, but I still love
form.
to collect vinyl, man.
But see, I still collect old comics. Yeah. I don't collect the new ones. I go for the old ones, the ones that have like the Steve Ditko's, drawings and the original Stan Lee stories and stuff like that.
And you're going to find the old school people, though, that are still seeking it out and searching.
Yes, but it's hard to run a business off that.
Sure, pay your overhead.
Online is really kind of that way to go. So it was fun. It just the business model. Plus, I'm not bagging on Logan, but it's not a high density city that's going to support. You're not going to get the masses from there. And people aren't going to drive up from Ogden or even down from Boise to go, well, there's this place in Logan that's...
So did the shop close in, the comic book shop?
It closed for a while, and I think actually he opened it back up on a smaller version. He loves it, and he does a lot of online stuff. So I give him my blessing. He's a great guy, and I just was...
And he does say the podcast again?
Netheads.
Netheads.
It's on Kevin Smith's Smodco.
Pretty good?
Great, yeah. It's kind of like geek and tech. His name's Trent Hunsaker. He's a great guy.
I'll check it out and give it a listen.
He rivals your beard. I think there's only a few people who's you have one of the bestly, that's not even a word, one of the best groomed beard I've ever seen. I've seen big beards, but that's
I try to, that was the thing that like I felt like, well, if I'm going to grow a beard, I can't look like a hobo.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
Like that was I can't do it. I have to. So I'm still working with it. I'm still trying to, get it all trimmed up and growing out. And
I'm jealous. I try it, but I only get to that prickly stage and I can't stand it anymore. So
you got to get past that.
I try.
Man.
I know there's so many things that I give up on in life, and that's it.
Growing a beard. So that's the longest you've ever grown a beard, then?
No, And the other part is as odd enough, my hair is actually going to connect to my eyebrows soon, but I can't grow a full beard on the sides.
Okay.
So I can grow a goatee. I think it's a Spanish thing. We're ready to be conquistadors and matadors, but don't ask us to grow a full beard. I can't do it.
So what brought you to Salt Lake then? What got you connected to? Was it 50? It wasn't 50 West, was it?
Yes and no, because my wife and I met my wife in Logan, and we were married in 2000. It was 11/22/11, so 2011. So we're almost 4 years. We moved. We actually bought a house in St. George. We wanted to get out of Logan because it was freezing.
But St. George?
It was one of those things where it's close enough to California, but if we moved to California, we'd have to pay taxes, and those taxes would wipe us out pretty fast. So you don't live in California. But it was close enough to we can just drive to California, or if we need to come back to visit family. But then I was presented with this opportunity by Deloy Hansen, who happens to be my father-in-law. That's the inside scoop right there. Yeah, see, all the pieces are connecting. And he and I talked about it when he bought Broadway Media. He was asking, are you interested in any of that? And I go, the carrot was dangled really well because I love entertainment. I love art. I love music and the two biggest things were stand-up comedy and podcasting. Because I had been involved with Trent up there doing a podcast called Zeros and Heroes, and I just love it. I love the idea that there's 2 people or 3 people can just talk, and there's people all over the world that are going to just click on a button and listen to you talk. and care what you have to say, no matter whether it was like, which one's better? Is it Superman or Batman? Or, hey, is Planned Parenthood a good idea? Everybody wants to hear what you have to say. And a lot of times there's not anywhere else to say it. So I talked to him about this, and he said, hey, I have an idea. There's this, we have the building, we have the space. I'm going to let you do this, but it wasn't a gift. I mean, I'm definitely financially and fiscally responsible for this place, which is kind of a blessing and a curse. But my wife and I discussed it over length, and we said, yeah. All right, let's do this. So this is right after we bought the house in St. George. We had to turn around, sell it, and then we moved up here to North Salt Lake.
So that's what you're in North Salt Lake area right now.
Just around the corner there.
Okay, so not too far from here.
No, I love it because I don't have to get on the freeway. Even though it's only like 5 minutes, it could take 15 or 20 or an hour to get here just because of traffic.
So when you opened 50 West, then, I mean, you were like, okay, maybe let's do a restaurant, maybe have some stand-up comedy, maybe have some music. I mean, what was your original, is pretty much how it is now, your original vision?
Yes.
Or
to a degree. I thought that we'd definitely, in my dreams, in my head, everything worked out perfectly because the first second we opened, everyone would be like, this is God's gift to Salt Lake, and we all line up the door and we all throw all of our money at us. But that didn't happen. Salt Lake is its unique place, and it takes a while to get going. But as far as the actual model goes, it's spot on. And now focusing more, my mission was live, local, and original content, which really feeds into both the comedy, music, and podcasting scenes, because that's all right here. It's given. You're one of them.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you reaching out to me to do, some shows.
Well, because I had listened to you. I remember being in Logan doing our podcast and just going, man, I should get a hold of this guy. But I always felt like, well, he's Salt Lake. He's not Logan. But I loved the fact that you really focus on local people, local stories, because we all say, well, it's just Salt Lake, but we don't realize how many interesting people, and everybody has their own story.
Yeah.
There's not one person here who's like, well, my grandparents came over as pioneers and I've been here ever since. And no, I mean, each person somehow ended up in this valley on different reasons. I did. I never, like I said, this was the one place I said I would never live.
Mine too, man. And that's what's crazy.
I'm here and I couldn't be any happier.
Yeah.
I never thought that I have a city that I could love this city. Because, you go to New York and like, this is an amazing, crazy, wild place. Vegas, same thing. LA and Seattle. But to say Salt Lake and I see it flying in on an airplane and I'm just happy.
Yeah.
That's cool. I mean,
well, back to your comment about stories, it's like so often, like somebody like yourself, you might see, you hear, like when I came to the first stand-up comedy night, you were the MC or whatever the they call the host. And, you see you on stage, but it's like you don't get to hear your story. And so now this will give people an opportunity to get to know Jonathan a little bit better and find out, 50 West and find out what you're up to, how you got here. Let's talk about the cafe just a little bit because I got a bone to pick about that. Why does it close so early?
You know what? That's something that we're continually working on. We actually opened from like 10 to about 7, but again, I have massive. I've never had anxiety before I opened this business. I had a club up in Logan, and it was an old movie theater that we had stuff. I didn't care about that. I was like, this is a great time. Here, it's like I have to generate revenue to match, these words. As an artist, you don't recognize them, but they say, cost, labor cost and cost of goods and all that stuff. So you have businesses here during the day, but my fear is that if we stayed open too late, it's that dead time, and people hadn't quite got to know our food yet. And they're amazing places here. By no means do I call them competition because I eat there all the time. But you've got everything from Gracie's and Squatters and Red Rock that are similar.
Right around, right
and
here.
They're on the same street. So for me to say, well, I'm going to open this place where we weren't really a foodie yet, and I hadn't quite figured out the concepts for food, I was scared, to be honest. And so breakfast we knew we had, so we served breakfast all day. My goal for 2016 is to open 8 to midnight, and we'll be food all the time.
Well, because I know how it is for me. I don't work right downtown for my day job. Right. And so it's like, gosh, if I can't get here, for breakfast or something like that, because I just live a few blocks from here.
And the other goal is to, if we have events every day during the week, we open back up and there's just a small lull. But my goal for the whole restaurant, my kitchen manager and staff, is I want this place busy all the time. And it's getting there. In fact, they're actually superseding our goal expectations for the financial plan and revenue, where we're looking at, hey, we need to kind of be in the black in 2 years. And we're actually looking at that here in our first year. So
let's talk about the menu really quickly, just because I'm a bit of a foodie. I enjoy food. And people listening, that might come for like a comedy show or a live podcast, an I Am Salt Lake live podcast even. Is the menu that you have available the nights of comedy or music the same as the daytime menu? Or
yes and no. So my staff is adaptable to say, if you walk in and the goal is that you come in and eat during the days. And then our nighttime menu is a little bit shorter and easier to just, for speed. Because in the venue we feed, up to 320 people or 500 if they're standing. And in the cafe during the day, it only fits about 80. So that's a little more. We could have steaks and, longer cooked foods, where in the venue they're really fast. But if you said, hey, you know what, I had a breakfast burrito or a barbecue chicken salad in the cafe, I'd like it in here, done. I mean, it's an adaptable place, but the nice thing is not only do we have the food, but we have drinks as well. The cafe has a restaurant license and the venue has the full club liquor license. But it's the nice one. It's the diner club. So if you're under 21, you can still get in to events. Like you said, hey, one time we had Carly Rae Jepsen show up and do it. And I was like, well, this is going to be horrible because it's a 21 plus. But they said, oh, unless it's accompanied by a guardian, then they can come in. So then we could actually facilitate the younger demographic who wants to come see Carly Rae as long as they brought a parent. So that
is really nice.
So the fact that you can actually stand up with your beer now, but if you go into the restaurant, you can't. So it's still teaching. It's still teaching styles.
It's still
And like I said, I definitely, in the process of getting the license, I was frustrated. And
was that pretty? We'll talk about. So you have the full license.
So
you have
full
a full
license.
liquor, beer, the whole.
Yeah.
Was that tough to get?
Well, So it took us forever, and I was nervous. I was like, I did all the prep work, but I only presented twice. And the key thing, for any businesses that I can know of, is to have the commission come out and tour your spot. When you go to the UDABC, you have about 2 minutes or less to actually just present your whole reason and why you believe and passion about your restaurant or club, why you should have the liquor license. They were able to come out and tour and ask me questions in about a half an hour. And they asked me everything possible. They saw where we stored the alcohol. They saw how we prepped and served it. They saw everything. They saw all the different things that they would ask out in 2 minutes. And then that next month I presented again and we got it. And so it really is, I thought it was not only great of them, but I just thought it was a really generous to take time out of their schedule, where they're kind of the bad policemen. They always get a bad rap for just, maintaining the law that the Congress and government sets up. So, but to come in here and actually ask questions like, hey, why did you do this? Or
give me an example or make up something.
Yeah. So for example, like right now,
what would be something they ask?
Just so they ask, like, is there a very specific exit and entrance that doesn't cross over into our restaurant? So you see there, we have a side door, and this door here closes so that I can actually eliminate any type of entrance from the restaurant into the club so that we can control anyone under 21 coming in without proper IDing. And they're like, that's great. Same with storage. So they see our bar and then they see these roll down doors and they go, great. That's a locked in stored place. They,
and did you know that they were going to be looking for these type of things? Is that kind of why you built it?
That's why I built it the way it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you think that's most people's problem or when they don't get licenses or pass because they don't do the research?
I don't think they do the research. A lot of it's like these stuff that it's hidden. And the other part is a lot of people go into a building already built.
Sure.
And then you're trying to adapt it.
And was this just one big open
This
room?
was actually two different law or office sections. One was the Chase Bank offices and the other one was a law office of some sort. Right down the middle was the split, and we just gutted it. And then the hardest part was building the kitchen. But we kept everything in mind. Like I went to the health code, health safety people and said public safety and said, what do I need to do for health code? Come in and walk the space with me. I think if you do the education and you ask for help, they're always going to be more compliant than, well, we did this and you just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
Because then the city no one's ever going to like that. do it because I said so. No, that doesn't work well. But if you work with the government and those people, you're going to be better off. I've seen the UDABC meetings that get really heated when angry business owners who have been either presenting a lot just get up there and said, well, you just don't give it to me. And, well, I've never seen anything end well that starts with an argument or an accusation, and then you're asking that person to now give you something.
Well, you hear there's only so many liquor licenses to go around.
Oh, yeah.
Or, do you think a lot of that's rumor, or does that mean that's legit?
No, it's legit. In fact, I remember one day there was a business owner who was upset. You don't do this, and you have this license, and you should give it out immediately. And the commission said, actually, technically in the bylaws, it says that we can keep it in as inventory as long as we want. We don't have to give out all the licenses. And that was kind of an eye-opener, because you think every business is we thrive on that concept of liquor. I mean,
well, you think they would want to keep passing them out. It's more tax dollars for the city and for the state.
But again, it's just that I think it's that we're afraid of anything that we don't understand. And I think that this is completely my only guess, is that when we're afraid of something, because we know of the negative side of liquor and alcohol use, we see like the addicts and the violent behavior, the drowsy, drunken driving. Those are horrible things, but nobody realizes, well, the same can come from a lot of different items that we put into our body.
Yeah.
But they're like, no, it's bad. And whether I don't necessarily think it's a church. It might be conservative, but they just said, we're just afraid of it. We don't want it. So hide the liquor behind the Zion curtain. Don't give these out to people because it's only going to draw bad people into Salt Lake. I don't personally agree with it because raised on military bases, I learned how to swear. I had my first cigarette at 7 and it was disgusting. I saw people drunk all the time and it never made me go like, well, I want to be a drunk and I want to hit my kids and I want to smoke weed all the time. It didn't do that.
Yeah.
It was because I had good parents. They were actually involved in my childhood.
Well, I think a lot of it is you don't have to make it look like a bad thing. And then I think as a kid, you want to rebel in some way or another.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my gosh, like my mom, that's how it was for me growing up, like certain music, for example. I wasn't allowed to listen to certain music, but so I went behind my mom's back and would listen to, I'd find the raunchiest rap out there, you know what I mean? Like that's what I grew up on, but that was because my mom wouldn't let me. And I'm not saying that parents should be like, oh, you want to listen to Two Life Crew or filthy rap, let them listen to it. But you get the idea what I'm saying.
Any kid's going to say the second your parent says no, you're going to turn around and be like, all right, well, of course they said don't jump on the couch. I'm going to jump on the couch. Whether they're there or not, I'm going to do it. And my parents had a good rule. They said, okay, you're going to have a curfew and you're going to go to church. Those are the two things until you're 18. But other than that, they're like, you're kind of on your own. So I grow long hair and they're like, that's fine, but you're still going to church. I was like, all right, that's a cool rule. And if I called them and said, hey, I'm not going to be by curfew, can you give me 15 more minutes or an hour? Cool.
Yeah.
But if I broke any of that stuff, then it was toast. So it was cool. They set boundaries, but not so confining that it killed me because let's be honest, we're all going to, you see it now, even in children who get out of the homes that are really restricted. The first thing they do or are influenced by are those things that maybe they don't know how to control or say, hey, just have one drink. They're like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
And then So anyway, as far as not passing out liquor licenses, I'd love that rule to change because for me as a business, you have people flying in and for conventions and hotels here. And the first thing I have to tell them in a restaurant is saying, oh, hey, you need to sit down. And they're like, what?
Well, because you deal probably with a lot of, convention people here.
A lot. In fact, I'd probably say about 80% outside of the business people here during the day are convention goers just walking through saying, hey, I want a drink. I see you got a game on or a UFC fight or, hey, there's a band playing on stage. Can I come in? I'm like, yeah, sure. But,
you got to do this.
Yeah. So once we got the club license, it changed everything. So it's been great.
What do you think of the direction? I mean, let's talk downtown Salt Lake here for a minute. Just because, that's where my love is. I live right here downtown. With your business downtown. What do you think of the direction that it's going?
It's being a newcomer here, but I've also been through Salt Lake so many times, and it has to go through that growing, budding process that every city goes through. They have the booming downtown initially, and then it spreads out, right now, I guess the booming parts are in like Draper, Sandy area and up north.
Why anybody would want to live down there?
Growing up.
No offense to my listeners in Draper,
Growing up, that's where people were hang gliding off the cliff, and that's what I saw. But then I think that downtown is they're doing the right direction. I think the Downtown Alliance, people like Visit Salt Lake, Jason Mathis with the Downtown Alliance is really pushing things, bringing the bikes downtown, vibrancy of festivals and businesses are revamping down here. We're one of them. Yeah. We said, hey, let's just take this dilapidated old building. I don't know if you ever saw the bridge across, but it looked like an old Disney subway train. It was it wanted to be a furistic
Where
tube.
Was that at?
This bridge that goes right between the two buildings here, Ruth Chris and this building. If you look up old pictures of Broadway, this building, it was a Chase Bank building. This used to be the old Chase building.
Okay.
And you look it up, it's a weird looking tube that went across. And they came in, ripped it out, put the windows on, and put the radio groups up there. And it's great. And a good example is the Zephyr Club next door. I mean, that place
a lot of old memories there.
Every person I talk to, especially being in the club scene, they go, oh my gosh, the Zephyrs right there. I saw this band, this band, this band. I had so many great memories. And now we look at it, and it's just this sad scrapbook of history that no one even goes near. It's like, oh, that's an old building. And it's sad to me because it is a history piece. But I think that, not that we're going to fill that void, but I think that downtown is starting to say, hey, come back. Like, there's stuff to do, there's people to see, and it's okay. It's not a scary place, and it's a fun place. Everything from the Gallivan Center, I think like the night concerts over there, the farmers market, and every business is saying, hey, I'm going to try Salt Lake again. That's huge. And I love being a part of that kind of the history and the future for Salt Lake.
Here's a random question.
Okay.
And I'm full of random questions.
Lots of random questions.
Just because, I know Sunday's a ghost town in downtown. I mean,
Yes.
it's picking up.
Yeah.
It's picking up. What would you say the busiest night of the week is here in downtown? In your opinion?
It's whenever there is a big convention, but I think overall it's not even Saturday night. I think it's Friday.
Really?
I think Thursday and Friday night are the busiest downtown days. And I don't know if it's a Sunday get ready or Saturday get ready for Sunday concept or convention goers are leaving to go back home. But I think Friday's kind of that, like, let's get it done. And Thursday's like, well, I don't really need to worry about work tomorrow. Like that concept. But
yeah,
we see most of our energies, both daytimes and night times, are on Thursdays and Friday nights.
Again, I know it was a random question.
No, but it's weird.
Like, it's just like, I've always been curious. Like,
my thoughts, for example, we had Hal Sparks here from the I Love the 80s genre, and he was here on the weekend, and the busiest night was Friday night. And I'm a Saturday night guy, so it's weird.
Yeah.
When I come to work and I was like, oh, well, the tickets weren't as good as yesterday, but whatever, So you have to know your demographic for sure. I think that I keep telling everybody that I've spoken to that Salt Lake seems about 20 years behind everybody else on growth. I think we're exponentially getting faster, but we haven't quite caught up with the boom. And so if I say, hey, let's go downtown, some people are like, well, let's just stay here and watch Netflix, or let's just stay, like you said, let's stay in Layton, or let's stay in, Ogden. Let's not really make the trek to Salt Lake, except for the big stuff. Like Taylor Swift's going to sell out, so they'll all make the trek, but they still get mad at like, what, $3 parking? This is absurd.
Oh, I love people that complain about our parking downtown. It's like, try going to other cities where you pay $50 a month or, or $20 a day.
A day.
Yeah.
Like event parking, like they're mad at $10 over it there. Or, if I say, hey, downstairs we have $3 parking. Well, where's there to park free? I don't know. Like go your house and take the tracks? No, we can't do that. Can't take that.
But see, and then back to tracks, they need to run it later on the weekend.
Yep.
Especially for the bar goers. Last train's at like a midnight or something.
Yeah, and you're sitting there saying, but that's hard for us where our last drink, call is at 1. So then I'm missing out on an hour worth of revenue that could potentially be going because you're sitting there saying, I got to get on the train. I got to go. I got to get home or else I'm stuck.
Yeah.
And then that just leads to other problems.
Well, and then thank goodness Uber and Lyft came along. I don't know if you've ever used their service.
I've never used it, but I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think it's a great concept that really is one of those things that says, well, why not?
Yeah.
You're saying I can't use the train anymore, but this guy's going to give me a ride.
And I know the city fought that for a while too.
Yeah. I think it's just that change. Everybody fights change all the time. And it's once we start embracing it, you'll find that everybody's going to progress and evolve much quicker. Not to say that all change is good. I'm just saying that if you embrace it and realize that it's going to happen, that's when you're able to adapt and maybe even prep for things and say, hey, this is coming. What do we do? So instead of just saying no, 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 we say, all right, how do we make this work for us as a city? And I think that, in the next upcoming elections, that people make those decisions and vote in that concept. Not like, let's keep this the same, because nothing ever stays the same. We talked about family earlier. My family is not the same as it was growing up. I had a mom and a dad and 2 brothers, 2 sisters, but I don't have that same relationship that I did. They're still my family, but I have different relationships with them now, and it's evolved. I now have my own family. They have theirs. They've all spread. I still consider them family, but they're not the people that I go home and eat dinner with anymore. But I like my family. It had to evolve and change. So I think the city is the same way. We have to accept that there are different races and religions and lifestyles, but little by little, I'll use like the gay community is little by little, people are going, oh, well, they're not going to come into my home and teach my kid that they're going to go do something bad to animals. Like that was the concept growing up. Is that,
where that ever came along, I have no idea.
I've never understood that concept. Yeah. Even to this day, I remember being a kid going, well, wait, what?
Yeah.
Growing up in a LDS community, I was like, okay, well, to me, that's weird that 2 girls would kiss or 2 guys would kiss or hold hands or love each other. I was like, well, that didn't make sense to me. But I was like, I didn't ever make that jump to animals. Like, or like if 2, yeah, anyway. But that's my point, is that you realize that they are people and they're beautiful and I'm just like they are and they're just like me, and it's okay. That's what I think growing up in the military for me did. It was like, okay, well, you're a Filipino kid and you don't speak English, but you're an amazing breakdancer. Cool. Well, you're Catholic and I'm LDS, but we breakdance, or we go slide down the same mountain together on the snow. Awesome. It didn't make any sense to me that I would hate you for any other reason than maybe that you kicked me in the nuts or something. That was the only stuff like that. Don't kick me in the nuts.
Well, you've listened to the podcast. I have to ask a question. Favorite local eating spots, places you enjoy eating, and obviously, I hate asking it when there's a restaurant or a cafe, but you're closed at night.
Yeah.
So what about some recommendations that Jonathan likes to eat at?
Right. Well, so coming to Newtown and bringing up Logan, we had about 3 places you could eat.
Sure.
So coming to Salt Lake is like refreshing in every level possible, and it has something for every kind of foodie, or even if you're just like, I don't even care about the taste of food, I want quantity. So outside of ours, which is fun because I've been able to change our menu if I don't like something. My wife and I love Valters for our nights, the special nights out. But if I'm
just right down from here, right?
Right down on the same street. Yeah, it's almost like we don't really dive out of anywhere. Our favorite sushi place right now is the Sapas. We enjoy that because it's in a quirky little place, and you look from the outside, you're going, that's not doesn't look like a nice place to eat at, and you go inside and it's really good. But probably my favorite place right now is, if I want some just lunch, I just like Spitz would probably be
oh man, I love the falafel.
Yep. And I spent 2 semesters abroad in Germany, and that was a daily eating thing. So to come here in Salt Lake and get their style, and it's delicious. I have memories of being back in Essen, Germany, teaching college kids, walking around, talking about art and eating falafel.
And Spitz is right on 300 as well.
I don't venture. I should really venture north and south a little bit more. If I ever got the time to get away from this place.
Let's talk, besides Pearl Jam, right. Who would be like somebody that realistically that you would love to see come to 50 West here?
Oh my gosh. Musically, geez.
I mean, I guess that's a tough question.
It is. So, yeah, music would actually be harder.
Okay, say comedian.
So comedian right off the bat. If I could have anybody in this place, it'd probably be the comedian Eddie Izzard, who's a European, British comedian. I loved him, or a lot of my heroes have passed on. But if George Carlin was still around,
I was just thinking George Carlin. He is one that oh my gosh, I wish I could have seen him do.
It's one of those things, and Robin Williams came to Kingsbury and did a night with Robin Williams, and I got to see him. It was almost about exactly a year before he left. He passed on, and that was a bucket list. I was like, man. And I'm also proud to say that I had a bucket list of Bill Cosby, but I'm glad we never fulfilled that one. I'm okay with that, not finding this.
Well, see, even there, though, like, you have to separate a little bit with him as a comedian, especially old Bill Cosby.
For sure.
It's like, back then it was I don't know.
It was a different, and that's going to be the argument for the rest of forever is, do we judge people based on their behavior offstage? Because if we did that, about 99% of Hollywood should just be banned. You know, they aren't necessarily. I've met a lot of great professionals and a lot of people who I'd never want to really meet again, who are great performers. But musically, I'd probably love to see Harry Connick Jr. on that stage, just with him and a piano, just back to old school, New Orleans style Creole jazz. I think that would be fun. But and if we could get either Louis C.K. or Eddie Izzard, I think, on that stage. And Eddie was just here at I think it was Capitol. So,
well, Louis, if you got Louis here, you'd have to let me interview him.
You know that I would never even be. I would be passed out. I would be in a coma, and someone would be like, "By the way, he's done, and he's had a great show." And I'd be like, "Oh man, I missed it." I would just pass out if there was ever a chance.
Yeah.
There's just so many great things, and you and I have talked about this, which leads into why we're doing this tonight. I think podcasting is one of those things too, and I think there's a billion wonderful podcasters that aren't. Podcast is slowly becoming an art form, or is being accepted as an art form, and that the talent that's behind it, because we all know that it's easy to just sit there and talk into a microphone, but if you're looking at live performances or just quality of effort, you chop that field, really quick, and it's down to about a 2% of people that you can say are really. You're engaged by what they're saying, and when they're talking, you go, "Oh, I actually care what they're saying." So I think podcast is only going to grow, and and
with you doing live podcasts here, what if you got like some of these comedians even that do podcasts, get them to do a comedy show and then record a podcast? I don't know. I mean, the ideas are
we've actually so Robert Kelly, who came, has his podcast. He's called "You Know What, Dude." And the hard part, when you first interact with comedians, you never interact with them. You have to get through the 17 walls and layers of agents and publicists. But once they get here, everyone that's been in here goes, "Dude, when I come back, we're doing the podcast on Thursday night, and then I'll do stand-up Friday and Saturday." So for me, I'm winning on all ends because I get to see a live podcast, see the live comedian, but also they get that opportunity to have a show and not have to change anything. So they're here already. And we have, like you said, the cameras and the audio capabilities. It's built to be utilized. So it's people like Bill Burr who have a podcast and stand-up, Joe Rogan, all these guys, the whole Earwolf group does podcasting and stand-up.
Mark Maron.
Yep, Mark Maron. He's another one. But
he's one of my favorites, man. I love Mark.
And I love the comedians who've been working their asses off since before we knew anything about him. Like Louis was a writer in the middle of nowhere doing stuff, and no one ever saw him. They heard his work, but never knew that, oh my gosh, this guy was on Conan. This guy was on, Saturday doing all this. And then he was a working comic, and now we know him. Mark Maron's the same way. He's one of the hardest working guys and happened to do a podcast, and the podcast made him the household name that he is.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, that's the whole plug on podcast.
Let's run down the list. How can people find out more about 50 West? How can people connect? Websites? I mean, I know you do Twitter. Run down the list.
We do, we do it all those things that the young kids are using nowadays. So Facebook is, we're just doing the club at 50 West. The Instagram is 50 West SLC, and that's also our Twitter, 50 West SLC, hashtag or whatever, or at. And then our website is 50westslc.com, and that's where you can buy most tickets and see who's coming. We have everything from the Real soccer watch parties. I think our next big comedian is Steve Hofstetter, who does his own Laughs TV show, and then we have Dave Ketchner from The Anchorman. And then musically, we have the Ex-Ambassadors. We have like a whole Comic-Con thing this weekend with a group called Geek Tyrant. And the Geek Show, Kerry Jackson's Geek Show, is going to be here and just killing the end of that weekend and, bringing their live podcast. So anything you go on our websites, or if you just give us a call, or actually just come down to 50 West and Broadway and walk through. It's people don't get it until they see it. But if you go to our website, you can also take a Google virtual tour on there. So it's pretty cool.
And just to let people know, the entrance for the club part, you got to come up the side a little ways. You don't go to the very front.
Unless it's daytime. Daytime, you can go in through the front.
Well, the front for the
cafe. You can just actually
But
come
I'm talking
through.
about if you come at night.
If you come at night, yes. It's under the colored bridge, and the bridge colors change. But you just walk up at the side, and we're on the side entrance.
Awesome. Anything else you want to talk about, Jonathan, before we cut this out?
No,
I think we kind of touched base on everything.
We did. It's nice to be summed up in an hour. Like that's your life right there.
Well, we could have chatted longer.
No, I know,
we
it's
could
great.
have. And, I always tell people this, and I really would like to do some more podcasts with you. I think you got a great thing going here with the club.
I think so, too.
I really cannot urge people enough to come down here. Especially for some of this comedy, the open mic nights. I mean,
Yeah.
the $5 to get in. I mean,
Well, my thing is that if we ever want bigger and better things in Salt Lake, we have to support what's already there.
absolutely.
Because if we don't, then no one will ever be successful enough to generate more ideas and concepts. So my whole thing, the podcast group gets it. You guys all support each other, cross promote. Oh, my buddy's doing a podcast. I'm going to go down and watch him. Comedians, we're working on that. Musicians, we want to do that. But even just whatever you love, support it. Even if it's out there for Salt Lake. I mean, everything's out there for Salt Lake. But just support what you love. And obviously, we're a local business. Come try us out at least. Try the food out. Try a comedy show. Try a musical thing. Even if you just want to rent it for a holiday party or whatever, just try it. And if you have any feedback, say, dude, I would love to do this, but I don't like that. Just like you said, I'd love it to be open later. And I'm going, great, I'm already working on it. If someone comes in and says, hey, the nachos need better cheese, I guarantee, being the boss, I'm going to say, hey, put some different cheese. It's going to change only if people support it. You've seen so many places come up and then close. They open up and close throughout Salt Lake because they had great concepts but no support.
Hey, I'm a believer. You got to support local.
Yeah.
Keep your money here, man.
Amen.
Cool, Jonathan. We'll end it there. Thanks, bud. All right, many thanks goes out to Jonathan. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode. I had a great time chatting with him. Hopefully I see you guys out Friday, October 16th for the first I Am Salt Lake Live with special guests Kerry Jackson, Paul Duane, and Levi Rounds. It's going to be a fun night. Hey, there's a few ways you can support the show, and all support is greatly appreciated. And many thanks to those of you that have been supporting the podcast for a while. First and foremost, you can make a one-time donation or a monthly donation by going to iamsaltlake.com/donate. There's a few options there where you can kick on over $1 or $2, support the podcast, support the web hosting, audio hosting. I'm constantly needing new equipment, and your help is greatly appreciated. Like I said, if you can't make a donation, not a big deal. The podcast will always be free, so don't worry. But you can share your favorite episodes on any social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram. Share them with your family and friends. Don't make this podcast your dirty little secret, and I will love you forever for that. Also, connect with me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I Am Salt Lake on all of those. Connect with me, introduce yourself, tell me who you are. I don't mention this very often, but we actually have a voicemail for the podcast where you can leave a voicemail or send me a text. It's 385-202-5926. Again, 385-202-5926. Text me. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Let me know what you thought of any of the episodes. That's going to do it. Episode 191 with Jonathan Ribera from 50 West Club and Cafe. I'll see you guys on Friday. It's going to be a good time, I promise you. You have a great week.